or no? So lower
Yes, sir.
contact forces means like frictional force and as well as muscular force, and non-contacting forces means in the sense of gravitational force, magnetic force, and as well as some other force. What is that? Electrostatic force. So these are the forces we
Electrostatic.
have discussed. Understand the forces and the types of forces. Types of forces means they used to say, understanding contact and non-contacting forces. Is it yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Non-contacting forces. So that is what you have studied in lower classes. But if it comes to here, if it comes to 9th class, so that is not, here also we'll study the types of forces, but not this contacting and non-contacting forces. We'll study balanced and unbalanced forces. What we are going to study now?
Balanced and unbalanced
Types
force.
of forces. So now the next one which we are going to study is balanced and unbalanced forces. So all of you keep heading balanced and unbalanced forces. Unbalanced force. So let us see, we have two types of forces now. What is that two types of forces? Forces are two types now. One is balanced forces and the second one is
Unbalanced forces.
Unbalanced forces.
you understand? So one is balanced forces and the second one is unbalanced forces. Now let us discuss one by one very clearly. So now if we'll take here first one, balanced forces. What we should call? Balanced forces. All of you should understand. First understand, later we can write. Balanced forces. So what is the meaning of balanced forces means? For example, you see, if the resultant of all the forces acting on a body is zero, all of you should remember. So whatever the forces are acting, it may be acting a gravitational force, it may be acting a force of friction, it may be acting force of push, pull, whatever it is. Understand? So whatever it is, the forces, different forces. If we take suppose me, on me, so many forces are acting. Gravitational force is acting downwards. Understand? The force of friction of air is trying to push me forward or pull me backward, something like that. Always my force, whatever my weight is present, I am trying to always acting opposite direction to the gravity. Because if not, I will go inside the earth. Is it yes or no? I will go inside the earth if the gravity is more. So that is why my body weight always exerting force little bit, normal force, which is opposite to the gravity, so that only I am standing on this earth. If not, I will go inside the earth. Like that, if you take any body in this earth, understand, so many forces are acting on it, but if we'll add the forces, like mathematics, understand, suppose four forces are acting, one force, second force, and four forces are acting. If we'll make adding these four forces, then both, all the resultant is equals to zero. The resultant force is equals to what?
Zero.
Then that forces are called as balanced forces. If we'll add that all, then that forces must be equals to zero. Then that is only called as balanced forces. So I know that you may not understand by the definition. Let us, for example, let us take the, understand, suppose a body under the action of balanced forces. For example, if we take in our home, heavy box, you may see that in my home or in our somewhere in your home, you have a heavy box which does not move, which does not move. Suppose let me take, this is my ground and I have placed a very, very heavy box. Heavy box. Heavy box, you can see that does not move at all. Is it yes or no? Does
Yes,
not.
sir.
Suppose I have placed it here. It will be here only after 1 year, here only. After 10 years also here only. After 20 years also here only. Now, in this case, if you observe, under the action of balanced forces, not only this box, any body under the action of balanced forces, you can see, does not change its position of rest. Do you understand? Does not change its position of
Rest.
rest, or else the body which is in uniform motion. You may understand what is the meaning of uniform motion. First chapter you have studied. What is the meaning of uniform motion? What is the
Sir,
meaning?
changing the speed in
Which is
constant.
constant speed. Is it yes or no?
Constant speed, sir. Acceleration zero.
If you want to increase the speed or if you want to decrease the speed, what you should do? You have to either increase the acceleration or else you have to apply the brakes. Is it yes or no? So unless
Yes, sir.
Sir.
we are applying the brake or acceleration, our car will go always with the uniform speed, So there is no change in understanding motion of the body. Always the body will go with uniform motion. Now, this is when the body is going with a constant speed. Or else now, same car, when you park your car in front of your home. So now, is it automatically will move? Is it automatically will
No,
move?
sir.
No, unless until if you start the engine and if you press the accelerator, there is no change in car. Why? The car is always in rest. Is it yes or no?
Yes, sir.
One day, 1 year, 10 years also, the car which is present in front of your home does not change its position. Why? Because the forces acting on it is balanced forces. Understand? Why, sir? Let us take example. Understand? So when the balanced forces are acting on the body, so two things you should remember. The position of the object does not change when it is in rest. Do you understand, Ram? When it is in rest, the position of the object will never change. Remains it will be in same place. Or else when the body is in uniform motion, understanding, it appears to be same understanding, same uniform motion if no force is acting on it. Is it yes or no? Is it
Yes,
yes
Yes,
or no?
sir.
No external force is acting. The body is always will be travels like a same speed, constant speed. As the body is in rest, always remains in same position unless if you are not applying external force. Is it yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
That is only balanced forces. For example, let us discuss in this heavy box. Understand? Suppose if we take the heavy box is lying on the ground, or else your car is parking on the ground. So in this case, let us observe what is the meaning of understand balanced forces. So but this is what the good thing we can observe here very carefully. So I have placed a heavy box on the ground, or else the box is lying on the ground. Do you understand? Now, try to push this box with our hands. Understand? Heavy box which does not move. Now, if we try to push, what will happen, Ram? Force of our hand. I am trying to push from this side. I am exerting force. F-O-R-C, force of our push. So you can see that it is very, very heavy box, like suppose JCB or some big heavy box you imagine. So if we try to push this box with our hands, we found that the box does not move. Is it yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Yes, means the sense of it is remains the state of what? State of uniform motion or uniform, it is state of rest. I am trying to push from this side. I am trying to push this box. It is not moving at all. Means the sense of what? It is remains in state of
Rest.
state of rest only.
Rest.
So as we know that when you are trying to push this object, understanding as always some force is acting which will opposes the motion that we have studied in class 8. What is that motion? Which will oppose the motion. The force which will oppose the motion.
Friction.
Friction. Understanding. Very nice. So friction is always acting opposite to the direction of motion. Is it yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Yes or no? So when I'm trying to push from this side, then oppositely, who will act up? Dhanush,
Friction.
the force of friction will be acting. The force of friction will be acting. So if I am trying to push it, then there is no movement. Means in the sense of I am not applying the enough sufficient forces to overcome this friction. Is it yes or no?
Yes, sir.
So that
Yes, sir.
is you can observe the force of our push and the force of friction both are equal but opposite. Is it yes or no?
Yes, sir.
So that is why the body remains in state of rest. Remains in state of rest means in the sense of what is the resultant force? This is x and this is minus x. What is the resultant force?
0.
0.
0. Is it yes or no? Now,
Yes, sir.
same way, when I place this box on this ground, you may see that always downwards, the ground is exerting, means our weight, our body force is exerting some force in downwards. Is it yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
The force of gravity means the sense of the weight of this box. Understanding? The weight of box is always acting downward direction. So that is only we used to call as force of gravity. So now, if the weight of this body is acting downward direction, then it must to go into the downwards. It needs to go inside that. Is it yes or no?
Yes, sir.
But it is not going
Yes, sir.
inside. Why? Why it is not going inside? Because Earth is also exerting opposite reaction. Understanding? The force of reaction is exerted by whom? By ground.
Earth.
So ground is exerting force of reaction. Force of
Reaction.
reaction. By whom? Exerted by
Ground.
exerted by ground.
Ground.
Understand? Exerted by ground. So that is why you may notice it that box is not going downwards or not going upwards. Is it yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Means in the sense of what? The body is not going downwards or not going upwards. Means in the sense of what? The forces are equal, but one is downwards and one is upwards. So that what is the resultant force? The resultant force is equals to? The resultant force is equals to?
0.
0.
It means in the sense of the body remains in what? The body remains
Rest.
state of rest. Is
Rest.
it or no? So now totally four
sir.
forces are acting on body. If you'll see that, if you place a box in a heavy box on the ground, you may see that totally four forces are acting. One is I'm trying to push. Next one, opposite force is acting on it. Understand? That is only called as force of friction. Next one, the weight of the box. That is only called as force of gravity, which is acting towards to the downwards. And opposite to that, ground is exerted some upward force. That is only called as understanding force of reaction. So if we take here, understanding. So since the box does not move at all, means in the sense of what? We can conclude that the resultant of all these forces, all these four forces acting on it, which is equals to what? Which is equals to
0.
0. Do you understand? 0.
Yes, sir.
Or what we can say, no force is acting on it. So it behaves like even though four forces are acting, understand, it will feels that no force is acting on it. So that is why it is remains in state of what? Remains in
Rest.
state of rest on. Do you understand, Ram? So here if we'll observe, understanding, the push and the friction is balanced by each other, as well as the force of gravity is balanced by whom? The force of gravity is balanced by force of reaction of the ground. Is it yes or no, Ram?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
What is happening? The same way you suppose observe very carefully. Suppose when we hold a suitcase, study at some height from the ground. Suppose I have hold my marker in this ground. Understand? Like this I am ground. I am holding my marker. Let me imagine this is my suitcase. Now my suitcase is still here only unless until I am applying any external force. So now what is the forces acting on it? Can you able to say now? Suppose I am holding my suitcase, study at some height from the ground. This is my suitcase. Let me imagine. Now what is happening? The resultant force acting on the suitcase is 0 and it does not changes its position. Why? Can you able to say? Because when I'm trying to hold here, do you understand it? So that force, gravitational force is acting downwards and the same force ground is exerting upward. So that, and also I'm holding my suitcase like this with both hands. So this, what is happening? Both the forces is balancing opposite direction and upward and downward force is balancing. So that the suitcase will be in same state. Is it yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Same way.
Yes, sir.
Tug of war. Do you know how many of you know tug of war? Tug of war.
Yes, sir.
Do you know tug of war?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So tug of war, you may see that when both the sides equal members is there and equal strength is there. Is it the thread will move? Is there any direction and it will be remains constant? Tug
Sir,
of,
constant.
when the people are pushing from this side and pull like this side, like both are trying to pulling, rope pulling we can call tug of war. That is a game which we used to play in school also. Is it yes or no?
Yes, sir.
So when the people will fall, either these people will fall this side or these people will fall this side. When one team become more stronger and when they apply more amount of force. Is it yes or no?
Yes, sir.
But you may see that
Yes, sir.
that both the fellows will apply exacted same force. So means in the sense of the rope will never, these people will never come this side, and these people also will never go this side. So both at that situation, what is the forces? Both the forces are equal but opposite direction. Means in the sense of what? Is it balanced or unbalanced forces?
Balanced force.
Balanced forces.
Unbalanced.
That is why you can see a tug of war, no rope understanding. That is in a rope pulling between two teams, the resultant force applied by the two teams is zero. Understand? Zero. So that is why the rope does not move in either direction, either this direction or this direction. The rope does not move. Do you understand, Ra?
Yes, sir.
Yes or no?
Yes,
Because
sir.
the forces
Sir.
by the two teams are balanced, so that is why the rope is not moving any direction. So from this all these things I can conclude that, understand. So if a number of balanced forces acting on a stationary body, so what is happening? Number of balanced forces acting on a stationary body, what will happen? The body remains at state of
Rest. Rest.
or else
Rest.
stationary position. Is it yes or no? Now,
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
the same way, if number of balanced forces acting on a body in uniform motion, like a constant speed, uniform motion, the body continues to be a state of what? Uniform?
Rest.
Be uniform motion only. Is it yes or no? So the body
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
remains in state of rest. If you are applying a balanced forces, the body is in uniform motion, remains in uniform motion when we are applying the balanced forces. Do you understand, Ra?
Yes, sir.
Yes or
Yes,
no?
sir.
That is only called as balanced forces. Means the resultant force must become what? The resultant force must become
Zero.
zero. Then we cannot observe no change in understanding motion of your body when the body which is in rest, or else the body which is in uniform motion, there is no increasing speed or decreasing speed when the body is when we are applying the balanced forces. Do you understand, Ra?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So that is what is. So due to balanced forces, we cannot change the understanding speed of a body. Means in the sense of we cannot bring the body which is in rest. We cannot make the body to move. Or else when the body is in uniform motion, when we cannot increase its speed, or else we cannot bring it back to rest. Are you understand, Ra?
Yes, sir.
So that is what we should understand.
Yes, sir.
So, by applying balanced forces, we cannot do like rest. The body which is in rest, we cannot make it move. Or else the body which is in uniform motion, we cannot bring it to rest or we cannot increase the speed. But you may see that suppose I am applying a balanced forces. Suppose you can take. Let me take a balloon. How many of you know balloon? You all people know balloon. Correct or not?
Yes, sir.
So balloon,
Yes, sir.
press it between my hands. I am taking the balloon in between my hands. I am applying equal force. I am applying equal force. So what is happening? I am applying equal and opposite forces with this hand this side and with this hand this side. You may see that I am applying an equal amount of force, not unbalanced forces, balanced forces, but opposite direction, so that the balloon does not blast. Still it will be in a state of balloon, but the shape will change or not. The shape will change or not. When I am applying equal
Yes,
amount
sir.
balanced forces, so the resultant force will be zero. That is why the balloon still it will be inflated, but the shape of the balloon is changing or not.
Yes, sir.
That
Yes,
is what
sir.
so few situations, if a balanced forces are applying, understanding, then the shape of the object may change, but there is no kind of position. Means in the sense of if it is rest only. If it is in uniform motion only. So you have to remember that. So though the balanced forces, from this I can say a statement that though the balanced forces cannot produce motion in a stationary body. Is it yes or no? Is it possible to produce a motion? Is it
No,
possible?
sir.
Motion, Mavanish. The body is in rest.
No, sir.
No, sir.
We
No,
cannot
sir.
use a motion, as well as we cannot bring the body to rest. Understanding? We cannot stop a moving body. We cannot produce a motion in a stationary body, or as same way we cannot stop a moving body, but they can change the shape of the body. Is it yes or no? They can change the
Yes, sir.
shape of the body. Do you understand, all of you? They can change the
Yes, sir.
shape of the body. Understanding? That is what you should understanding. So that is an example you can see. Squeezing off this rubber ball or any kind of balloon is an example of balanced forces can change the shape of the body but not produce the motion, or they cannot stop a moving body. Now you remember, understanding, when we pressing this rubber ball or any kind of rubber balloon, understanding, between our two hands, the shape of the rubber ball continuously changes. Understanding? So that is what, understand, we are applying two equal and opposite forces, understanding, with our hands. Though the ball does not move, or else the shape, understand, it cannot bring us to rest. Suppose if it is in motion, it is not in motion, it is in rest only between our hands. So the body does not move, but its shape is changing. Is it yes or no? Is it yes or no?
Yes, sir.
This is what you should remember. So what is balanced forces? The resultant forces acting in a body must be equals to what? Tamil Selvan. Must be equals to what? Pradosh, Darun, Moni.
0.
0. The resultant force must be equals to 0, but it can change the shape of the body. Do you understand? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
That is what. So first,
Yes, sir.
balanced forces. Balanced forces. Balanced forces. Balanced forces. Balanced forces. Right. If the resultant of, all of you must write. Moghanesh, communicate, man. Tamil Selvan, Darun, you also.
Sir.
Yeah, if the resultant,
Sir.
are you understand balanced forces or not? Yes or no?
Yes, sir. Understood, sir.
If the resultant of all the forces, if the resultant of all the forces, acting on a body is zero, if the resultant of all the forces acting on a body is zero, the forces are called balanced forces. The forces are called balanced forces. Do you understand? The forces are called balanced forces. Balanced forces. Example. A heavy box is lying on the ground. Example. A heavy box is lying on the ground. A heavy box is lying on the ground. A heavy box is lying on the ground. Heavy box is lying on the ground. And all of you draw this diagram. Everybody must draw. So 4 forces are acting. When you keep a heavy box which does not move, which is kept on a ground, totally 4 forces are acting. One is a force of a push. Next one, opposite to that, force of friction. Next, the weight of the box is acting downwards. That is only called as gravity. Next, opposite to that, ground also will exert the same amount of force. That is only called as force of reaction, which is exerted by the ground. Do you understand? So this is called as weight of box. Also you can call it as force of gravity. What we should call, Pradosh? Darun?
Force of gravity.
So draw this diagram, all of you. So when balanced forces are acting on this body, so the body that does not produce any motion in it. Is it yes or no? So the box does not move. So even though when you are applying continuously 1 year also, if you are trying to push it continuously, the box does not move because we are not applying the more force which can dominate this frictional force. If you are applying the more force, means in the sense of when they will become unbalanced, understanding, then only the body will start moving. Unless until the body will be remains, it will be in motion, it will be in a state of rest only. Is it yes or no? Yes?
Yes, sir.
That is what. Do it. Draw this box.